She was shot 10 times by her ex-partner, a man who should have never been free. A man who already had served time for a similar violent crime. For months, my sister cried out for help. She did everything right. She called the police. She got an order for protection. She reported his threats. But the system failed her. The system that we rely on, the government, the police department, the parole office, failed her. The Minneapolis Police Department failed her. The parole office failed her. Her cries for safety were ignored. Her life should have been protected, and now she's gone. She's gone. She has two handsome, beautiful sons. She's got her family. She had a whole life ahead of her. She was the community's dog groomer. She loved animals. She was living out her life, living it passionately. And now another beautiful brown woman taken because those in powers refuse to act. So we are all here together today to say no more. No more dismissing women's cries for help. No more protecting violent offenders while victims are buried. No more ignoring domestic violence because of who the victim is. We want justice, justice from the police department, from the parole office, and every official who turned a blind eye. My sister's lives mattered. Allison's lives mattered. Black and brown women deserve protection, dignity, and care, and not neglect and excuses. So today we demand accountability. We demand reform. We demand justice, not for just my sister, but for every woman who will never get the chance to stand here and speak for herself.
At 7:45 a.m. on a Sunday morning, while most of Minneapolis was still waking up, Mariah Samuels picked up her phone and typed 6 words that would become her epitaph. The protection order isn't working. She didn't post it for likes. She posted it as a scream into the void. Because Mariah knew something the rest of the world hadn't realized yet. She knew that the legal document sitting on her kitchen table, the one signed by a judge, the one that promised the full protection of the law, was nothing more than a piece of paper. And in exactly 5 minutes, that paper would fail her for the final time. When the echoes of the 10 shots finally faded, a question began to haunt the city of Minneapolis. A question that, as of 2026, still threatens to tear the department apart. If Mariah Samuels did everything the system told her to do, if she was the perfect victim who documented every threat and called every hotline, then why is she dead? To understand the end, we have to look at the true beginning. 3 weeks before the final post, August 21st, Mariah is dropping her 11-year-old son off at a relative's house. It's a routine Sunday. But David Eugene Wright is waiting. He doesn't just argue with her. He pistol whips her in front of her child. He tries to choke the life out of her while a witness watches, frozen, on a FaceTime call. Mariah manages to escape. She calls 911. She gives them a name. She gives them a location. She gives them the history. But here is the first glitch in the machine. In the world of policing there is a term, JOA, gone on arrival. Because David Wright fled the scene before the sirens arrived, his file wasn't marked urgent. It wasn't handed to a detective for immediate arrest. Instead, Mariah's life was placed into a literal stack of 49 other unassigned cases. To the system, she was just another file in a backlog. To David Wright, the silence of the police was a green light. Mariah became her own investigator. She turned her social media into a digital ghost story, documenting her own stalking in real time. She posted photos of her slashed tires. She posted the surveillance clips of Wright lurking in the shadows of her porch. She was building a mountain of evidence that she hoped would save her. She thought she was building a case. In reality, she was documenting a haunting. On August 29th, she finally got it. The paper shield. An order for protection. The law states that if David Wright even stepped foot on her block, he would go to jail. Mariah finally took a breath. She told her family she felt like she could sleep again. She believed the system had finally seen her. But there is a dark irony to an order for protection. For a man like David Wright, a man with a history of violence stretching back 20 years, that paper wasn't a deterrent. It was a formal notification that he was losing control. Mariah thought the paper was a shield that would keep him away. She had no idea. that for David Wright that paper was a target. And the countdown to 7:45 a.m. had just begun. 2 hours before she died, the police stood in her living room. They looked her in the eye and they left. They told the world she felt safe. Next, we look at the body cam footage that proves that was a lie. To understand why Mariah Samuels is dead, we have to talk about the man the system already knew. In true crime, we often look for the first offense, the moment a shadow becomes a threat. For David Eugene Wright, that moment wasn't in 2025. It was 22 years earlier. In November 2002, Wright was the monster in the room for another woman. Just like Mariah, she had tried to leave him. And just like Mariah, she was met with a terrifying display of ownership. Wright didn't just threaten her. He pointed a loaded 9mm at her and her 15-year-old sister. When the teenager reached for the phone to call 911, Wright ripped the cord from the wall and smashed the device to pieces. He was convicted. He was sent to prison. He was labeled a prohibited person, a man who should never touch a firearm again. So, here's the question that should keep every viewer awake tonight. How was this man, a man with a documented history of pointing guns at women who left him, standing in Mariah's driveway 2 decades later? This is the storytelling twist the headlines often miss. At the time Wright met Mariah, he wasn't just a free man. He was on federal probation for illegal gun possession. He was under the most intense scrutiny the United States legal system can provide. Every move he made, every text he sent, was supposed to be a red flag for his handlers. But the system didn't just blink, it fell asleep at the wheel. By September 2025, Wright's ownership mindset had reached a fever pitch. According to the criminal complaint, the morning of the murder was fueled by a delusional, bone-deep jealousy. He began a barrage of texts at 3 a.m., accusing Mariah of being with a former partner. These weren't the texts of a broken heart, they were the texts of a predator tracking his prey. He was circling the block, literally and digitally, convincing himself that if he couldn't have her, no one could. In the world of psychological profiling, we call this intimate partner homicide, IPH. There is a specific death spiral that leads to this moment. It starts with coercive control, moves to isolation, and peaks when the victim finally says, "It's over." For Mariah, the breakup on August 21st was her declaration of independence. For Wright, it was a declaration of war. When the police finally caught him in Anoka, Wright didn't beg for a lawyer. He didn't claim innocence. He looked the investigators in the eye and said something that will chill you to your core. He said, "It's not going to be a hard-fought case. Read the texts, and you'll understand why I did it." He thought his jealousy was a valid excuse for execution. He thought his reasons would make sense to the world. We did read those texts, David. And they don't reveal a man who was hurt. They reveal a man who believed he owned a woman's life. But reading the text was only the beginning. Next, we go inside the squad car on the morning of September 14th, where an officer made a decision that would seal Mariah's fate. Sunday, September 14th. While the rest of the city slept, the death spiral reached its peak. Mariah Samuels had been awake for hours, trapped in a digital cage of threatening texts. At 5:14 a.m., she finally reached for the only lifeline she had left. She called 911. This is where the story shifts from a domestic tragedy into a systemic failure. 2 officers, including Officer Ryan Weber, arrived at the home where Mariah was staying. She showed them the flurry of texts. She told them she was convinced David Wright had tampered with her car. She was begging for the one thing the system had promised her: enforcement. But look at the report. Officer Weber would later write that Mariah told him she felt safe. He claimed that because Wright didn't know this specific address, the threat was minimal. But as we move into 2026, a devastating truth has emerged from the internal review. The body camera footage does not support the officer's words. Mariah wasn't calm. She wasn't feeling safe. She was a woman who knew the clock was ticking, being told by the person with the badge to go back inside and wait. The officers left. And in the silence that followed, Mariah made a choice. If the police wouldn't act, she would alert the world. At 7:37 a.m., she posted the surveillance video of Wright pistol whipping her. At 7:45 a.m., she typed her final warning to other victims: "The protection order isn't working." She was essentially writing her own black box recording, documenting the failure of the state just minutes before the crash. At 7:50 a.m., the ghost on a bicycle arrived. David Wright didn't hesitate. Witnesses describe a man who didn't just fire, he executed. 10 shots were fired at point-blank range into Mariah's car. She was sitting in the driver's seat, the same seat Officer Weber had seen her in just 2 hours earlier. Wright then pedaled away into the morning mist, leaving behind a neighborhood shattered by the sound of a system breaking. Then came the most gut-wrenching moment of all. Mariah's father, William, who lived in the other half of the duplex, heard the shots. He ran outside to find his daughter. But here is the twist that no scriptwriter could invent. The first officer to respond to the scene of the murder was the exact same officer who had told her she was safe at 5 a.m. Imagine that moment. Standing over the body of a woman you told wasn't in danger, while her father screams for answers you don't have. By October, the outcry was too loud to ignore. Chief Brian O'Hara ordered a thorough review and mandated retraining for every officer in the city. But for Mariah's family, retraining is a hollow word. They want to know why the protocol failed when it mattered most. The chief says the system will change. But what did those body cams actually record in those final hours? And why is the city fighting so hard to keep the full audio from the public? December 11, 2025. The doors of justice finally swung open, but not for a standard hearing. A grand jury, after reviewing months of evidence the Minneapolis Police Department had initially let sit in a backlog, handed down an indictment that changed the stakes of this case forever. David Eugene Wright was no longer just facing a murder charge. He was facing a reckoning. The upgrade was significant. First-degree premeditated murder carries a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. But it's the second count, murder with a past pattern of domestic abuse, that serves as the ultimate indictment of the system's failure. In true crime, this is known as one of the hardest charges to prove. To win, prosecutors can't just show that Wright pulled the trigger on September 14th. They have to put his entire life on trial. They have to prove that Mariah wasn't just a victim of a single moment of rage, but of a calculated years-long campaign of terror. By filing this, the state is admitting what Mariah tried to tell them for weeks. David Wright didn't just snap. He followed a blueprint. But as the legal case against Wright solidified, a secondary battle began to rage in the halls of power. The Minneapolis Police Department's defense for the August backlog was a single word: staffing. They claimed that with only 5 investigators in the domestic assault unit, down from 12, they simply couldn't get to Mariah's file in time. It raises a chilling question for the 2026 legal landscape. Is a lack of staff a valid legal defense for a preventable death? If you call for help and the city says they are too busy to save you, who is responsible? I want you to stop and think about that. Go to the comments right now. Should the city of Minneapolis be held civilly liable for the failure to assign Mariah's case? Or is the blame 100% on the man who held the gun? As we stand here in early 2026, the case remains in a state of high-tension limbo. At his most recent hearing, David Wright, the man who claimed the text would explain everything, refused to even show his face in court, a final act of defiance against a family that refuses to be silenced. Mariah Samuels was a mother, a dog groomer, a daughter. But in death, she has become something more, a catalyst. Her name is now attached to the Mariah Review, a complete overhaul of how the MPD handles domestic violence. She was the perfect victim who did everything right, and her story proves that a paper shield is only as strong as the people sworn to enforce it. Mariah wasn't a statistic. She was a sacrifice. And the world is finally listening to her 7:45 a.m. post. If you or someone you know is in danger, don't wait for the paper to work. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233. Mariah Samuels did everything she was supposed to do. She spoke up, she documented the truth, and she asked for help. Now it's our turn to speak for her. Creating these deep dives takes hundreds of hours of research, but we do it because stories like Mariah's cannot be allowed to fade into a backlog. If you believe that the system needs to change, if you believe that a paper shield should actually protect the person holding it, then hit the like button. It's the simplest way to tell the algorithm that this story matters. We are committed to following this case through the 2026 trial and beyond. If you want to stay updated on the legal fight for accountability in Minneapolis, subscribe and turn on all notifications. Your support is what keeps this channel going. It allows us to keep digging, keep questioning, and keep the spotlight on the cases that the world tries to look away from. But the most important thing you can do right now is join the conversation. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you believe the city is liable for the police backlog? What does justice look like for Mariah's family in 2026? I read every single one of your thoughts, and your engagement is what turns this channel from a video into a community of advocates. Finally, share this video. Send it to one person who needs to hear it. Because as long as we keep saying her name, Mariah Samuels isn't just a statistic. She's a movement. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. And I'll see you in the next investigation.